Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're going to be upgrading the Crack the Case starter deck. We'll be doing it on a budget with no rares. So if you want to upgrade this, you need to close the My Decks tab, go to your starter decks. You cannot edit these, but you can, where is it? Select it, and you can clone it down here. And this is going to create a copy in your My Decks. And this one you can edit as much as you like. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to click here, or if you are in this layout, you want to click up here, and you want to change this over to standard. Great. So what is this deck? It has two themes, one overlapping theme. The first is Detectives. Oh, without an S. I was very confused there for a second. Detectives. There are a lot of detectives. As you see, this is a tribal detective deck, which of course also cares about clue tokens. I guess we should type investigate. So clue tokens. So detectives and clues, those are our themes. So we can upgrade this on a budget because there are a lot of weaker cards. You know, cards like this. 4 mana, 3/3, investigate. And it does have flying, I guess, but not that exciting. Another thing that I want to note that is okay, but I think we need to take it out, is this little package here. So Agency Outfitter, when it enters, you get to search your library and whatnot for one copy of each of these. The problem is, this is a 6 mana 4/3 with flying, so that's pretty bad. I mean, we could get so much more power for a 6-drop. And then this is a mana rock that investigates for 4, and it's cost 3. And this gives a detective +1/+2, so that's okay. This one's like the only one that's reasonable, and it's still not great. So this whole package is gonna have to go. So we're gonna upgrade this without using rares. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add rares, because the other decks have rares, the other starter decks, so we might as well use them because they're free. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a roaming throne, and I can tell this is already one of these decks that's just too long. I'm going to put the 1-drops over here, and I'm going to put this here so I don't have to constantly keep that should have been there anyway. This makes it a little bit easier. We'll fix, don't worry about it. Anyway, so this is a 3/3 flying, cool, cost 4, not so cool. When it dies, it makes a clue. That's all fine, but this is super cool. So 4 mana, 4/4. Oh, this is in the Fairy Pranks deck, so it is 100% free. If you don't have this in your collection, go unlock that deck, and then you'll have it for free. 4 mana, 4/4, Ward 2. When it enters, you choose a creature type. We're going to choose Detective. It becomes that type, and then if a triggered ability of a creature of that type triggers, it triggers an additional time. So, like for example, when we play this, it's going to investigate twice. This gets +1/+1 whenever we play a detective, so it's going to get +2/+2 because that's a triggered ability. This is going to, when you play a detective, it draws and discards, but with Roaming Throne, it would draw 2, discard 2, right? So it's all pretty cool, and this is just medium. So let's take one of these out and add 1 copy of Roaming Throne. Next, we're going to take out a Griffknot Tracker for another totally free, rare. I mean, this is a detective. It's a free, rare detective that we get in another deck. 3 mana, 2/4 flying vigilance. At the beginning of our upkeep, we get to investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in hand. So obviously we're playing 1v1. So if the opponent has more cards, we get to investigate for free. And it's a 3 mana, 2/4 with vigilance, which is awesome. We can attack with it, and it blocks well, and it's going to get pumped up by our tribal detective stuff, right? It could be a 3/5 with one of these. And it's a free rare detective that we get to play. Better than this thing, which is a 4 mana 3/2 flyer, a bit clunkier, and all it does is exile a card from a graveyard, which could be relevant, but not likely, not guaranteed. So we'll take one of these out, put one of these Wojak Investigators in, because it's better. Alright, so let's start taking out this weird package of things that I just don't think is very good. And we have an amazing case for this deck that should have just been in the deck. I don't know why it's not. It is Case of the Pilfered Proof. So this, I guess we should talk about the card that we're taking out. It's a mana rock. I mean, we have some expensive stuff, but look, we're going to be taking out both of these. Like, all of this is going out, so we're not really ramping into anything, so that doesn't matter. 4 mana to investigate's fine. Is it? Not really. We have to pay 4 and tap it, and then pay 2, so it's basically 6 mana draw. Oh, yeah, no. This, on the other hand, whenever a detective enters or is turned face up, we're not going to be focusing much on the what's it called? Disguise. We're not going to be focusing on disguise, but whenever we play a detective, +1/+1 counter, and then if we have 3 or more detectives, let me remind you that we have a lot of detectives. So if we have 3, we solve the case, and then whenever one or more tokens would be created, we make those tokens plus a clue. So for example, once again, this would enter, make a clue, and then make an extra one. So all of our investigate stuff doubles clues, and we have a lot. We care a lot about investigating and getting clues. So it's pretty cool. Just the 2 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on all of our detectives is pretty good. So we'll take 2 of these out. I'm going to put 2 of these in. And similarly, we'll take out this thinking cap, both of these, for 2 more of the cases. Because it's like one of the best cards in this archetype. It's uncommon. We really should have had 2 or 3 in the deck from the start. Don't know why we didn't. But let's just take out the thinking cap. Get 4 of these in because it's very good. So we've been reducing the mana curve quite a bit. So we're going to be going in the opposite direction here. But I think it's worth taking out 2 of these for 2 of these. So this is a 2 mana 1/3, not very good. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, it becomes a 2 mana 3/3, which like surely there's just like a 2 mana 3/3 here. Let's do a quick check, right? 2 mana, and you know, there's kind of like some better cards. I guess they're not detectives, but like you could play this. Like it's just not that big of a deal. Even if we trigger it, it's like, okay. This, on the other hand, 3 mana 3/3 gives all of our other detectives +1/+1, and then whenever we draw our second card each turn, which we do by cracking clue tokens, we get to make a detective unblockable, which is very useful. It gives us a way to just punch through. With no budget, you can play more of these, and it's really good. We just load up counters on one creature, make it unblockable with this, and that's all pretty good. But for now, this is rare, so we can't add extra, unfortunately, but I just don't think this is very good. Let's take 2 of these out and add 2 more of these in. So now is a somewhat controversial one. So I thought this card was pretty cool. We're going to take it out for a Novice Inspector. So it's a 2 mana 3/2. It disguises. When it turns face up, we get to either blink one of our creatures or exile something the opponent has, but they get a 2/2. But the important thing here is it's not a detective. It's an Elephant Cleric. It makes a detective. It gives the opponent a detective, but this isn't a detective. And we are very synergy tribal based. We have a Lord here. We're putting counters here. So we do care about the creature type quite a bit. And I don't think this effect is good enough to justify not having a detective. And if the removal is important, you could definitely just replace this with another removal spell, right? You could play, if you have any, you could play Get Lost or, just any other removal spell. This is rare, so we wouldn't add it for our budget, but if you have any of those, yeah, I mean, I'd rather play this, honestly, but it's better than the elephant. But this is a cool card, I think. Just not perfect for our deck. I think it's worth taking out 1 and just going up to 4 copies of one of the best 1-drops in Standard right now. I mean, 1 mana 1/2, good against red aggro. It investigates, so it can draw later, or if you draw it late, it just replaces itself with another card. So it's pretty good. Next, we need to add one of the most underrated cards in this archetype, and that is Projector Inspector. We're adding 1 of these, and we're taking out the Cold Case Cracker. So, as we said, this is just okay. The flying's cool, but remember, we just added this, so the evasion isn't as important. We're going to have unblockable creatures. But all the filtering from this is crazy good, because we have some very powerful cards. I mean, this is very good. This is very good. And filtering through all the junk, which, we're still going to have. I forget what all I left in. We'll see at the end. But we're still going to have like a couple of these. I think we're still playing Steam Core Scholar. So being able to just filter more is pretty good. And it makes it very, very easy to trigger Private Eye so we can make stuff unblockable. So I think it's worth taking out 1 of these and adding 1 more of these. This is also, by the way, so good with this card. I think this card is so good for this archetype. At the beginning of combat, you put +1/+1 counters on a creature equal to the number of cards you've drawn, -1, so it doesn't count your first draw. Triggering this a couple times just makes this so good, especially with like a Roaming Throne. So it's very good. I wish we could add more of these. Not every detective deck plays this, but I actually think it's pretty good. Next, removal. This card is not great. When it enters, we get to return 1 creature to its owner's hand, and if we controlled it, we investigate. So we can either bounce something of the opponent's, or we can bounce our own creature so we can replay it, which, like we could bounce something like this, right? And we get to investigate when we do that. It's just not worth it for a 6 mana 4/4. 6 mana is so much. We could get so much more power for 6 mana. I'd rather just play a more permanent removal spell. Get Lost would be my preference. We can't play that, but on a budget, You could play Ossification or any removal spell, honestly. Ossification is risky, people can blow it up and get their thing back, but I just want a better removal spell. We are taking out a detective for a non-detective, but this deck has a ton of detectives, and we've added a couple, right, with the elephant that we took out for this, so I'm okay taking out 2 of these for just a more consistent removal spell, and if you have a preference for a different removal spell that you prefer to play, that is absolutely, totally fine. Feel free to play it. Next, I think it is so weird that we have a board wipe in a creature-based deck. I mean, we have a ton of creatures. How many do we have? We have 26 creatures. So, playing a board wipe in a 26 creature deck is just, it's pretty weird. It's pretty weird. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know why we would do that. So let's just replace it with a very basic card. And that's a Deduce. And that's pretty cool. So, Deduce, very simple. Just replaces itself and it investigates, which is going to help with us with, drawing more with this and stuff. Which is very good. It's played in a lot of blue control decks, and I don't know why we have a board wipe in a creature-based deck like this. So, no thanks. It's cool to have it, though. You can put it in... Well, we don't need to do that, but you can play it in other decks. Just... This is a weird one, not this one. So next, detective decks are interesting because they're not always super creature-based. This one is very... It's more aggressively tuned, just out of the box. But a lot of them play a ton of control first, and they win with stuff like this late. And while we're not going completely in that direction, I do think we need to add No More Lies, as it's very good. No More Lies is an uncommon. It counters a spell unless the controller pays 3, and if it's countered, it exiles, which is great. And I think we can fit this in by taking out some of these weaker, kind of expensive detectives. These are just clunky, awkward. You can see how much more, like, our curve instantly looks better getting these things out. So I think it's just worth taking out these lower quality detectives and just getting some counter spells in. And we can do this now. And look how better our curve looks. We're really aggressively tuned down here, but remember that a lot of this deck is drawing and discarding with clue tokens, right? So even though we have not a ton of high-end stuff, we're going to be drawing a lot with investigate counters, right? And with this and these, we're just going to be building up big unblockable creatures. It's not uncommon for this deck to just set on defense, but attack with like a 5 to 6 power unblockable creature every turn. And that's it. Let's talk about rares. This one is often the main finisher of the deck. This is also good. 10th District Hero is also played. Do I have one? I have exactly one. Very nice. And this card that I mentioned earlier. So these are some of the hot rares for this deck. This one is less played. I would order them in order of importance in this order. So this is a 5-mana 5/5 flying. Awesome. Investigates twice. Great. And we can sacrifice artifacts to give it vigilance, lifelink, or hexproof. So it can protect itself. It can gain life against red aggro. Vigilance is also great because it can attack and stay on defense if necessary. If we curve like Roaming Throne into this, it puts out 4 clue tokens. So there's lots of gas to give it lots of abilities if necessary. Very cool. This, as I've explained, it just dishes out so many counters. If you draw 3 cards in addition to your first one, right? So 4 cards in a turn. This puts out 3 counters, which is awesome when we're making stuff unblockable. And remember, this doesn't care about cracking clues, it's just about drawing, which is why I think this card is so good in this deck. This is underrated, you don't see it always, and I think it's because people don't realize it's a detective. It's a 2-mana 2/3. You can pay 2, collect evidence 2, and it becomes a detective, a human detective, and it's a 4/4 with vigilance. And then if you can collect evidence 4, it becomes a 5/5 and gives your other creatures indestructible. You really only need to activate it once. If you can activate it once, it's a 4/4 vigilance detective. The only downside of this is it won't get a counter from the case, because it's not going to be a detective when it enters. So usually when decks play this, they don't play 4. They usually play like 1, maybe 2 at the most. But I think having 1 copy in is probably worth it. This card's not as necessary. 3-mana 3/3 vigilance is cool. It investigates, it's nice. And you can just absolutely draw a ton of cards off your clue tokens, which they already draw, but you can draw more and gain life. So not necessary. These 3 are the big ones, I think. This one's also alright. As far as the weak cards, we're looking at stuff like Steam Core Scholar, Forensic Gadgeteer, not always played. I mean, it's okay because it makes clues be able to sacrifice for 1 mana, which is cool. This also not very common. So you could take out these Granite Witnesses for a couple more of these. These 2 3-drops could definitely go into like 1 copy of this and 1 copy of this. I kind of want like at least 2 or 3 of these personally. But yeah, you're looking at taking these out. Maybe also, like this can be kind of clunky. It's not necessary 100%, which can go into one of these, right? But you're definitely looking for more of these, and you're looking for less of these. That would be the idea when adding rares to the deck. But for now, I think this deck is much better. This card's going to be a major game winner. This card also helps a lot. The Lord effect of pumping your board is nice, but actually the secret, really good aspect of this is making something unblockable every turn. So, yeah, that's the deck. Crack the case. 0 rares, but it's definitely much better than where we started, and we did it with 0 rares. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.